The night began like any other graveyard shift at the old gas station on the deserted highway. I was alone, save for the dim overhead lights and the faint hum of the fluorescent sign. The air was heavy with the scent of gasoline, and the solitude weighed on my nerves. Working the late shift had never been my first choice, but I needed the money. It was around midnight when the first peculiar occurrence happened. A car, a beat-up old sedan, pulled up to one of the pumps. The driver's window was cracked open, and a raspy voice called out, "Fill it up, please." There was something off about the driver. His face was hidden in the shadows of his hoodie, and his voice sent a shiver down my spine. Still, I couldn't refuse the request. As I began pumping the gas, I couldn't help but feel as though I was being watched. The feeling was so strong that I glanced around, but the store's surveillance camera showed nothing unusual. I shrugged it off, choking it up to exhaustion. After the tank was full, the driver handed me a crumpled bill and sped away without a word. As his car vanished into the darkness, I couldn't help but wonder who he was and why he seemed so ominous. Not long after, a thick fog rolled in, swallowing the gas station in an eerie silence. The hum of the signs and the distant rumble of the highway seemed distant and muffled. My unease grew as I watched the fog swirl around the pumps. Then, a soft knocking came from the door of the station's convenience store. My heart pounded in my chest as I approached the door, hesitating before unlocking it. I swung it open and saw nothing but the fog. The knocking had ceased. The minutes ticked by, and the fog showed no sign of lifting. The surveillance cameras showed distorted images of the surroundings, making it impossible to see what lurked in the mist. I had an overwhelming sense that I wasn't alone. A second knock came, louder this time, as if someone were impatiently tapping on the glass door. I summoned all my courage and flung the door open, ready to confront whoever was out there. But there was nothing, only the fog, thick and foreboding. As I retreated back inside, I noticed something written on the window, etched by an unseen hand. "They never rest." My blood ran cold, and I felt an invisible presence drawing closer. The knocking continued, growing louder and more insistent, as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling. I rushed to the counter and called the police, my voice quivering. I pleaded for help, describing the fog, the knocking, and the eerie message on the window. The police arrived within what felt like an eternity, but was only minutes. They searched the fog but found no trace of the mysterious knocker. They told me it was probably just a prankster, but I knew better. I quit my job at the gas station after that night, unable to shake the feeling that something otherworldly had visited me during that graveyard shift. I never learned the identity of the mysterious driver, and to this day, I'm haunted by the chilling message on the window and the sinister presence in the fog. I was a working student struggling to make ends meet, and the graveyard shift at the gas station was my desperate lifeline. It was a typical small-town gas station, isolated on the outskirts of town, surrounded by dark woods that seemed to stretch on forever. But I needed the money, so I'd locked myself into the eerie routine of working alone through the long, lonely nights. As the sun dipped below the horizon, my shift began. The harsh neon lights buzzed overhead, casting long, eerie shadows over the empty pumps. The nights here were filled with eerie silence, broken only by the low hum of the refrigerators and the occasional creaking of the ancient air conditioning unit. I busied myself with stocking shelves, rearranging items, and trying to stave off the creeping sense of dread that threatened to consume me. The first few hours passed without incident, but the eerie feeling of being watched never left me. I could have sworn I heard whispers in the stillness of the night, voices just beyond the reach of comprehension. My heart raced, but I had to shrug it off. I couldn't afford to give in to fear. Around midnight, the door chimed and I jolted upright. An old, rusty sedan pulled into the station, and a chill ran down my spine. A tall, shadowy figure emerged from the driver's seat, draped in a tattered coat that seemed to dance mysteriously in the wind. My voice shook as I greeted them. Can I help you? The figure didn't respond, instead placing a crumpled, ancient-looking bill on the counter. The sight of it sent a shiver down my spine. It was stained with a sinister red hue, as if it had been dipped in blood. I hesitantly reached for it, my fingers trembling. Then, in a voice that seemed to echo from the depths of the abyss, the figure whispered, "You can help yourself, child." I blinked, and when I looked up, the figure had vanished, as if it had never been there. The old sedan, too, had disappeared into the night. My heart raced, and I clutched the mysterious, blood-stained bill in my hand. I was alone, and an inexplicable dread had gripped me like a vice. I forced myself to continue working, my every movement filled with anxiety. Unexplained noises echoed through the empty store, and the sensation of being watched grew more intense. Time seemed to drag on, each minute feeling like an eternity. Finally, as the first faint glimmers of dawn broke over the horizon, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I locked the door behind me and walked out, vowing never to return to that gas station. The memory of the hooded figure and the sinister bill haunted my dreams for weeks to come. A reminder that some horrors are best left unexplored, and some shifts are better left untouched in the silence of the night. As a gas delivery driver, I had seen my fair share of gas stations, but there was one that I had always dreaded making deliveries to. The lonely, desolate station on the edge of town. It was the graveyard shift, and my destination was the eerie gas station that had a reputation for being cursed, so they said. But that night I couldn't avoid it. I was the only driver available. The dimly lit station came into view as I pulled up, and I could feel a shiver running down my spine. The neon lights buzzed overhead, casting long, foreboding shadows across the empty pumps. The gas station sat isolated, surrounded by dense woods that seemed to loom closer and closer as I approached. I reluctantly parked my tanker truck, grabbed the hose, and made my way to the underground tanks. The air was thick with a chilling silence, only broken by the soft hum of the refrigerators and the eerie creaking of the old air conditioning unit. I tried to shake off the sense of dread that clung to me. As I worked to pump the gas, I couldn't escape the feeling that I was not alone. The thick woods surrounding the station seemed to hide lurking figures in their depths, and the howling wind sounded like mournful whispers in my ears. I couldn't help but glance over my shoulder every so often, searching for any sign of movement. The night pressed on, and every minute felt like an hour. I finished the delivery and was about to pack up when I heard a sound that sent a chill straight to my core. A rusted door chime jingled. I turned, my heart racing, and saw an old, decrepit sedan pulling up to the gas pumps. The driver's side door creaked open, and a tall, shadowy figure emerged. The figure was draped in a long, tattered coat that moved as if it had a life of its own, rippling in the non-existent breeze. The hood of the coat obscured the face, but the figure's eyes seemed to burn with an eerie intensity. I struggled to find my voice. "Can I help you?" The figure didn't respond with words. Instead, they placed a crumpled bill on the counter, a bill that was ancient and stained with a sinister red mark. My fingers trembled as I reached for it, and I could hardly breathe. In a whisper that sent shivers down my spine, the figure spoke, "You can help yourself, driver." My heart pounded as I watched, paralyzed with fear. When I finally looked up, the figure in the old sedan had vanished into thin air. Panic washed over me, and I knew I had to get out of there. I hurriedly packed up and left the gas station, vowing to never return. The memory of that haunting encounter stayed with me, a stark reminder that some places should remain untouched, hidden in the shadows of the night. As I drove away, I couldn't help but wonder about the sinister ancient bill and the figure that had appeared from nowhere, forever etching that cursed gas station into my darkest nightmares.